Hello, beautiful people of YouTube. Thank you for joining. And I was sitting back and I was thinking, what would I recommend as the definitive collection of poetry from Charles Bukowski to recommend to people? And then I realized I didn't have to even think about it because the New York Times book review had already done it for me. And in fact, they labeled it as the definitive volume of Bukowski's poems. And I do agree, because it was one that I feel is not an official release of or an official publication of Bukowski poems, but one that was done really of a collection from different collections, if you like. And it's called The Pleasures of the Damned, the poems from 1951 to 1993. And if you don't know it already, Charles Bukowski passed away. He died in 1994. So this was containing poems up till the year before he died. And I want to do something a little bit unusual. I'm actually going to read a poem to you, which is classic Bukowski in every sense of the word. And the poem is called My Telephone. The telephone has not been kind of late. Of late there have been more and more calls from people who want to come over and talk, from people who are depressed, from people who are lonely, from people who just don't know what to do with their time. I'm no snob. I try to help. I try to suggest something that might be of assistance. But there have been more calls, more and more calls. And what the callers don't realize is that I have problems too. And even when I don't, it's necessary for me sometimes just to be alone and quiet and doing nothing. So the other day, after many days of listening to depressed and lonely people wanting me to assuage their grief, I was lying there, enjoying looking at the ceiling when the phone rang. I picked it up and said, "Listen, whatever your problem is or whatever you want, I can't help you." After a moment of silence, whoever it was hung up, and I felt like a man who had escaped. I napped then, perhaps an hour, when the phone rang again and I picked it up. "Whatever your problem is, I can't help you." "Is this Mr. Chinaski?" "Yes." "This is Helen at your dentist's office to remind you that you have an appointment at 3:30 tomorrow afternoon." I told her I'd be there for her. And the classic, of course, Mr. Chinaski is the character that Bukowski created as himself, Henry Chinaski. But the classic humorous ending to a Bukowski poem, of course, it deals with this very real issue of wanting to be alone, receiving these unwelcome phone calls. It turns out to be his dentist in this particular case, and of course, he'll be there for her. It's comical. Comedy at its finest.